What's going on, Bourbon family? Hey, we're ready to have some fun today. And, I wanted to change up a little bit because a lot of times people will reach out and say, Bourbon Judge. A lot of times you review more higher priced bourbons. Can you work in maybe once in a while some more economically friendly bourbons? So bourbons that are budget friendly, right? They don't kill the wallet. They're easily affordable. You don't have to go to a lot of different liquor stores to even find them. You have to go to literally maybe one, no more than two. Well, today's episode is dedicated to everyone that reached out. We're going to go ahead and have some fun with Old Forester 100 proof. Let me let you guys see that bottle. All right. So this is Old Forester 100 proof. So if you guys recall, I reviewed the 1910 Old Forester. I reviewed Old Forester 1920. I even made my own episode where I did the Old Forester 1915, where I combined the two together, the 1910 and the 1920. That, by the way, is pretty damn delicious. But they do make they make a couple of different more, let's call it reasonably priced bourbons. They have the 86 proof. They have a rye, of course, as well. And they also have this 100 proof. So this is one where, gosh, I think I've seen this bottle in basically almost every liquor store I've been to in the last, call it like 2 weeks. Obviously I've been looking for other bottles, but just wanted to see whether or not how true is it that this bourbon is really available. And it is. I've seen it in literally every single liquor store I've been in the last 2 weeks, right? So it's definitely available. Coming in, Old Forester coming in at 100 proof on the dot. From a price standpoint, this is easily a value deal from just that standpoint by itself. Just the price. We'll get into the quality here in a little bit. It's a 20, I think I got this for, I think it was like 23, 24 bucks, I think, something like that. So, less than $25. I'm not sure how much cheaper you're going to get bourbon for less than $25, especially for an Old Forester product. And the last thing I will say, again, because I reviewed multiple different Old Foresters in the past, I will throw the link up above, just in case you want to see all the history about Old Forester, which, by the way, they are one of the premier, the creme de la creme of distilleries. So check out one of those other episodes, and I'll dive into a lot about Old Forester. But just Cliff Notes version, Old Forester, obviously a Kentucky-based distillery. They distill bourbon. Actually, technically, they distill bourbon before Prohibition, during Prohibition, and then post-Prohibition. They did it during for like medicinal and all that kind of fun stuff that happened. Medicinal purposes, which I still think is pretty damn funny. But again, check out one of those other videos, and I'll kind of dive into a lot more history about Old Forester as a whole. All right, let's go ahead and crack this bad boy. Let's get into this one. Today's episode might be a little bit quicker, which is a good thing, right? All right, let me pour this real quick. So what I will say about Old Forester is that, gosh, when you want to talk about consistency, they are one of the major distilleries where almost every single product that I've had, it's always a solid bourbon or rye. Extremely consistent. And I like that because I know what I'm getting. I don't have to worry about, is it going to vary versus like the last batch and so forth. So that's a cool thing. We don't know the exact age on this one, right? We don't know the exact age, but we do know it's 100 proof. Again, coming in just a couple dollars shy of 25 bucks. That by itself, hey, I'm happy with that. All right, let me just tighten that up a little bit. Let me go ahead and get to this nose. All right. So, ooh, baby. Damn. So the nose by itself reminds me closer of like the 1910, which is 93 proof, versus the 1920. The 1910, if you recall, is very creamy, very just more leather, more oak, and very creamy on the nose. So a lot of leather, a lot of like brown sugar, a lot of maple syrup, and extremely creamy in the nose as well as in the palate. This just, the nose, it actually smells almost identical, to be honest with you, like the 1910. Almost. Wow. Tons of leather, tons of brown sugar, and a hell ton of oak. This is extremely oak forward. All right, folks. Hey, I say this each and every week. I appreciate everyone out there. Thank you for all the love and support. I really do appreciate it, guys and gals. If you can do 3 quick favors for me. Number 1, hit the like button. Number 2, drop me a comment. And last but not least, please make sure you also hit the subscribe button as well. From me to you, from the judge's household to your household. Cheers, everybody. So the question remains, can a budget-friendly bourbon be a good bourbon? 25 bucks. All right, let me get a little bit more. Let me get a little bit more of this. Okay. Couple of things come to mind. Number one, definitely different than the 1910. The nose is similar to the 1910, but the palate is completely different. No, not completely, but definitely different than the 1910 for sure. It's not as creamy as the 1910. In the palate and the finish was nice, long and steady, but it wasn't like super long, right? But it was long and steady, which is good. It's not as creamy as the 1910. It's more, in the palate is actually more brown sugar, more oak. I'm sorry, not oak. More brown sugar, more caramel, and more maple syrup actually in the palate. The palate actually reminds me closer to its old, let's call it like his old stepbrother. The Early Times, right? Early Times, which was also a Brown-Forman product. Now it's moved over. Early Times has moved over to Sazerac, purchased it earlier this year. But the palate of this reminds me a lot more. So this bourbon reminds me a lot more of the Early Times bottled and bind. In my opinion, very similar. And again, this one is definitely different than what I thought it would have been. I thought it would have been closer to like the 1910 Old Forester. It's not that. It doesn't have that extremely creamy kind of notes to it. It's more maple syrup with some oak mixed in and the brown sugar, but definitely a lot more maple syrup. But for $25, Bourbon Judge, is it worth a buy? Is it worth leaving on the shelf? You might be newer to bourbon. You want to just try something that's not going to kill your wallet. To me, for me, not for the bottle, but for me, and the bottle, this is a definite buy. I mean, a $25 bottle, this to me, I think would sit very well as it did neat. It would also probably sit well as well also for someone looking to maybe put it in a mixed drink as well. Someone who's newer to bourbon, you may want to throw even an ice cube in there. So in the ice cube, on the rocks, or even as a mixed drink, this is actually a really damn good product for 25 bucks. Hey, I'm a fan. It's going to stay on my shelf, and I'll plan on sharing it with some good friends. Hey, until the next time, folks, peace, cheers, salute. I appreciate everyone out there. Later.